Hi, Ed here from keywordspeopleuse.com, and I've got an exclusive time-limited offer for you. If you book a product demo with Keywords People Use, I'll give you a free 7-day trial of our standard plan, which allows you access to our new content optimization tool. This tool hooks into your Google Search Console data so we can find all the keywords you're ranking for and what pages are ranking. We then crawl your site content and use advanced machine learning techniques like embeddings and cosine similarity to find you content optimization opportunities that will quickly boost your impressions and clicks from Google. This new feature in Keywords People Use is already showing results for people using it. Don't miss out on the opportunity of a 7-day free trial. Just go to keywordspeopleuse.com/demo to book your slot. That's keywordspeopleuse.com/demo. You'll find the link in the show notes of this episode. Hello and welcome to SEO is Not That Hard. I'm your host Ed Dawson, the founder of the SEO intelligence platform keywordspeopleuse.com, where we help you discover the questions people ask online and then how to optimize your content to build traffic and authority. I've been in SEO and online marketing for over 20 years, and I'm here to share the wealth of knowledge, hints and tips I've amassed over that time. Hello, welcome back to SEO is Not That Hard. It's me here, Ed Dawson, as usual. And today I have got a new episode for you. Yeah, I was recently on the Market Movers podcast with Chris Panatani of Linkify, who are a digital PR agency. I actually had Chris on the podcast a couple of months ago. He was a really great guest, and he's returned the favour and I went on his podcast. I really enjoyed the interview. I think Chris got loads out of me that lots of other people haven't managed to do when they interview me. He's just a really good podcast host when it comes to interviewing other people. So yeah, highly recommend his podcast. He's done some great interviews with people in SEO and online marketing and digital PR and all that kind of thing. So really do highly recommend that you go listen to him. I'm still slightly on a break, so this is just sort of I thought I'd get this episode out to you though. So there are still some more best ofs to come, but I am building up some great ideas for future podcasts. So I will be back with more new ones in the future. But like I say, I've just been so busy with life, and there's still so much going on. Although I'm starting to get a handle on it now, starting to get lots of things done, both professional work-wise and also mentioned, on the farm this time of year, we've got a lot of things to do. The weather turns good and we can actually get some things done. So we've been trying to get all those done. We're having a real kind of heat wave in the UK here at the moment. It's not rained for, I think, almost the last month, which is really, really unusual, especially for our area of the UK. But it does mean that I'm managing to get things done that normally we'd have to wait until much later in the summer to get done. So yeah, that's really been taking up a lot of my time. But it's been great to hear from you. It's been great to hear from those of you who said they've been really enjoying the best of episodes. It's really good to put those back out again, because there is some really great stuff in the archive. And rather than necessarily just going over some of those grounds again, it's better just to share them again and say, look, these are the ones I think are really the most valuable to listen to. So hope you're enjoying them. And anyway, without further ado, let's get into this interview of me on the Market Movers podcast.
SEO veteran, successful affiliate entrepreneur, and the creator of KeywordsPeopleUse.com. Over the past 2 decades, sorry, Ed, I'm telling your age now, Ed has built and exited multiple high-traffic sites, including the iconic broadband.co.uk, and now shares his knowledge on his podcast, SEO is Not That Hard. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Well, thanks very much, Chris. It's great to be here.
Well, I normally start by saying, do you want to give me a brief intro in how you got into this world? But I suppose if we've got 20 years of history to cover, you could break it down as best you can.
Yeah. Well, like I say, you've aged me a bit by saying I've been in this over 20 years, and I wasn't like fresh out when I first got into SEO. I'm 49, but I'll admit my age. I'm 49. I'm almost 50. I've been in the tech world since, the early 90s. Was when I did my degree. I did computer science, software engineering degree, so proper techie. And I sort of got into the workforce just as the dot-com boom was blowing up and then completely falling apart. I worked for the first few years on very large database systems, very boring stuff in the public sector. And I was like, right, this is great. But all the people here who'd been there for like more than a few years, they started to call themselves lifers, and they were in the public sector for life. And I just thought, I was in my mid-20s and I thought I need to go and see some more of the real world. So I ended up leaving and ended up at a web agency. Mm-hmm. which worked with some fantastic clients like Cineworld Cinemas, BAFTA, Tesco, Interflora. I was working on like Interflora's first e-commerce sites. Really great cutting edge stuff to work at. And at the time, it was really good experience. But I still wanted to sort of do my own thing. Essentially, I wanted to get into business, and we got an opportunity because we came across the domain name broadband.co.uk because the company that I was working for was called Broadband Communications because they'd named themselves before broadband became a thing. The internet access. It was just meant it was just a broadband. We do a broadband of communications, including the web. People started ringing up wanting to get connected to broadband, the internet, in about 2004, and we were scratching our heads going, well, this isn't what we are, but we're getting more and more people coming to the website, and it was a case of, right, we need to change the brand of the agency. We need to split this domain out and to do something with broadband. This is where the whole SEO journey kind of started. I'd kind of been told, we have to include SEO for these big brands, but because they were such big brands, but as now, if you're working for a big brand, SEO kind of looks after itself a lot. I know there's a lot of tech SEOs out there, and the enterprise SEOs will go, oh no, it's really difficult, but you've got a massive advantage when you're a big brand, and it was even more so back then. But this was the first time we would really try and build something from scratch, and that's where my journey into SEO started. That's also where the journey into the affiliate world started, because we've got this website. We created a website all about broadband, and it's like, how do we monetize it? And that's when we discovered affiliate marketing. We'd never come across it before. And that was, again, the early days of affiliate. It was the early days of price comparison. I can't claim I invented the price comparison side of broadband.co.uk, because that was actually my wife who came up with the idea of like, why don't we like put all the providers on and, let people see what's available in their area and compare them by price and other things like that. So we were one of the earliest price comparison sites. I mean, Uswitch and Money Supermarket might have been there a little bit earlier, but back then it was still a very new concept. And then over the years, we got to the point where the broadband site blew up so much that we sold the agency off, because agency work was very, very tricky. It's always very hard to scale an agency, and we found that obviously the affiliate side could scale really well. And yet we grew it then over the next 20 years. We had our ups and downs. We can talk about that at some point if you want. We got hit by Penguin, we got hit by Panda. We've had all sorts of ups and downs, but we essentially built it, recovered it nicely. And in middle of COVID, one of our competitors, who are broadband Genie Ventures, approached us, said, would we be interested in a sale? And we've been approached many times in the past, and we've had lots of conversations with various people with various amounts of money. Some who, sounded like they can have a lot, but then turned out to didn't. But it basically got to the point where we said, look, we're always open to an offer. Everything's always for sale. They made us what was a very fair and reasonable offer. And contractually, it's not something I can share the exact numbers, but it was very significant. It was like a life-changing amount of money. Mm-hmm. So that was the point when I decided, right, we're out of the broadband sphere because of no competes and stuff for a while. And I was 45 at the time. Didn't want to retire. I'm too, I've always got to be building things. And that's when I thought, right, well, I've been doing SEO for 20 years nearly, without anyone really knowing I was doing SEO. There's the odd person I knew, but I wasn't a public SEO because it wasn't what we were trying to do. But it was a case of, actually, I want to try and share some of my knowledge now, help other people, because the trouble with SEO is there's no hard and fast rule, because Google and other search engines obviously obfuscate how it works. Because if everyone knew exactly how it worked, then it'd be a massive bun fight. And they have to make it tricky, they have to make it unclear, and they have to change the rules all the time, sort of in competition against people who are trying to game them. So I just wanted to share what I'd learned with people over all those years. So one was the podcast, two was the tool that was basically saying, this is what I've done for 20 years successfully, and how I've done content, how we've built things up. And so here's how I would do it. Here's some tools that can help. And here's also the podcast that just me talking about all sorts of things SEO wise. It can be a bit random. It's not necessarily always that organized, but it's just me sort of brain dumping through the podcast, short 10-minute episodes, always trying to be actionable, always trying that someone can walk away learning something new is my aim anyway. That's what I hope.
Awesome. Loads to dig into there. I want to just broadband.co.uk is a fascinating story. Just break down to me that initial. Was that your agency? You used We a lot. So was the agency yours, or were you employed at the agency?
Yeah, this is the complicated one because I was employed at the time. My wife was one of the partners of the agency. I was I was on the senior team. And that's what I met my wife at work, essentially, in the old days before Tinder and all that. I did it the old-fashioned way. Actually met somebody, fell in love, and all that business. And then, so obviously, when that company got split out, broadband.co.uk got split out. That was when I was married then to Fiona, and we essentially purchased it off the other two partners, because these things, when you start things off, they don't always work out the right way. So there was a difference of opinion on what the best way to monetize it was, and one of the partners wanted to do PPC, which we tried. We couldn't make it work. We just got in a lot of debt, and then it just got to the point where it was very debt laden, and I'd looked at it and thought, actually, if we just went solely SEO focused, solely organic on this, we can probably turn it around. But the other two partners at that point, they weren't interested. They were more focused on the agency side, and so we just made them an offer and we bought them out back then. So that's why that's the very in-depth, detailed one. So me and Fiona have owned it ever since, outright, until we sold it.
So I mean, it's a story of right place, right time then, to be getting those inbound calls to the agency, looking for a service that was essentially had the name of broadband in it, and you guys just were nothing to do with that. But you noticed it, and then somebody, was it you, maybe your wife, somebody went and bought that domain. It was available, and you purchased it.
Well, the domain was bought. I'm not even 100% sure, because the original agency had gone bust in 2001, and my wife and her two business partners at the time, they were employees. They phoenixed the agency back in 2001. The original people that set up the agency, they'd left at that point. They'd set it up sometime around about 1994, I think, and they'd registered the domain then in 1994 for a tenner. But broadband meant nothing then. It wasn't a technology. It was just a word.
Okay, and so at the point that you and your wife decided to take this gamble, which was away from the agency and to put your sole focus into broadband.co.uk, what did the broadband landscape look like at that point? Where were we in terms of, was it starting to be adopted? Were people starting to use it in common parlance as a means of internet? And then what did that transition from PPC not working and organic being the sole focus? What did that look like in terms of like time frame and then seeing results?
Well, I think the technology broadband itself was launched in the UK around early 2000, around 2004. I really should know this because all I did was write about broadband for 20 years, but you forget these things. So basically 2004 to 2008 was when we had the growth of broadband. So everyone was going from dial-up and converting to broadband, and you had like the first basic broadband connections that were like half a meg, which would seem so incredibly slow now. So that exactly. But it was amazing. It was amazing at the time, and it was always on. It didn't interrupt it wasn't like the old days where someone would pick the phone up in the house and disconnect you and all that. Exactly. If you can remember that far back. So it was there was a massive growth curve, and we could, and me and Fiona thought, well, there's this growth curve coming. There's going to be a lot of people coming. It's going to be this huge demand curve, and we thought it maybe had 4 or 5 years before it reached a peak, and then everyone had it, and it wouldn't be so profitable anymore. So that was our first thought. So we'll get on there, and we'll be there as an educational site in first place when people are asking questions. So we focused on content around the questions people have. And then we, over time, after a short period, maybe 2008, we added in a broadband speed test because lots of people wanted to test their speed. That was a lot of time when, am I getting what I'm paying for, was a thing. And, the quality of different broadband providers wasn't necessarily so great. And we kept the guides up to date as the technology moved on, because the first types of broadband, ADSL, hardly anyone uses anymore. Now it's all fibre to the cabinet or direct fibre or using 5G is becoming more of a thing, satellite broadband, with Starlink, things like this, all moving on. So the technology's moved on, but it's still just called broadband. So that's another thing where we got really lucky, because we thought it'll be fibre optic in a few years, and everyone will just be searching for fibre optic, and then we won't have that. We'll have to reposition all the content around a new term, and that's going to be problematic, and we might not do so well. But we were lucky. I completely admit there was luck. In terms of being in the right place at the right time, in terms of the domain, the technology, and also we were lucky that the term continued to be broadband.
Well, I mean, there's definitely an element of luck, but you certainly capitalized on the opportunity. You mentioned then a broadband speed test. I mean, that's genius. That's a tool. So I assume you guys built that, or had that like custom built, which is awesome. And you also talked briefly earlier about being possibly one of the first people, especially in the UK, to do these comparative guides, which again is genius. And now I suppose is just the essence of the affiliate model. So how did you go about implementing that, and when did you start to see that worked? And then was that the sort of the basis of sustained income over that period?
Yeah, I mean, what we wanted to do was, rather than just being a site about broadband, we really wanted it to be something useful for people. And the key thing was, and it's still the same today, but back then, as broadband was being rolled out, it wasn't available universally everywhere at once. So the key thing was, we thought we need to make it so that people can put in a postcode, and we'll tell them if broadband is available in their area, if it is, what providers are available in that area. So even now, Virgin Media Fibre isn't available everywhere. You have to go to these, you have to go somewhere, put in a postcode, find out what's available to you in that area. And it was that key, that was the key thing really, because we were marrying up a database. We built a database of all the broadband providers, all the deals that were available, where they're available, and then we had that checker so that we could say with clarity whether, this provider is available in your area. And part of that was literally going out and finding a source of that data. And we were lucky at the time. There was a guy who called Sam Crawford, who was just a broadband enthusiast, a real techie, and he'd literally done all the hard work, got all that data together, and made it available for free on an API. And so we just hooked into that. So that did that part, but we obviously then married it with our database of all the deals on the side that we kept up to date. That made the tool something really powerful. At a later date, someone with some commercial nous found Sam and said, "Sam, we should build a business on this." And now they're a massive business, and they do stuff all around the world. Sam's like a multimillionaire now, from someone that came along and said we can monetize this, and we ended up having to pay them, which was fine, because we were kept trying to pay him at the start because we didn't want him to stop the service, and he would never take any money. But someone came along and said, "No, you can monetize this," and they now do work with Ofcom. They do stuff with telecoms regulators all around the world. They have these boxes that they put in properties to sort of gauge how well different providers are doing, and regulators use it. So but it was it's taking two data sets, mashing them together, and then making it available for people. That was the key thing that was the core of its success, essentially.
Yeah, I mean that's just fantastic, and I think to be a truly successful affiliate model, that marrying of pure value, and you can see that just in a couple of things. Like, if I'm going to want to know, is broadband available in my area, and I find you organically, I search, and it says that it is available, and there's 2 or 3 providers, and then I can go into a guide, I can look at the difference between the providers, and then I can make a decision and buy right there. It's an affiliate transaction, but it's off the back of pure value, isn't it? On the fact that information has been, that I needed, it has been provided. And then you also talked about speed tests, which I assume you also had that affiliate journey. If somebody did a speed test and found out that their speed could be higher if they looked at possibly an alternative provider.
Exactly. Yeah. It was very much the case of, we would let them do a speed test, but we'd really encourage them to give us a postcode as well, because then we could compare what the speed you were getting against what other providers were in your area. So we could then also benchmark you against other users in your area, and we would record them also. We could say, right, you are performing well, poor, awful here are other providers in your area that could actually, increase your speed. And we do that. So we take them down a journey basically and try and offer them alternatives. It's a numbers game. The more, you're just pouring people in at the top of the funnel, and you're hoping that a certain number will convert at the bottom. But you've got to give them value. You've got to give them something that is hard to replicate elsewhere. That's why, there's been a lot of the affiliate model is dead noise going on, and since helpful content update, when we had lots of people who were just ranking basic top 10 lists of things, which are out of date immediately. They're not really adding any extra value, and there's just, it's so easy to compete against because everyone can write a top 10 list on these things. Whereas if you do something that is hard to replicate, not impossible, because you've got to be able to build it. If you can build it, it can be replicated. It's just how many people are going to have the time, the skill, and the energy to do it. So you've got to be hard to replicate, and you've got to do something that isn't just, especially nowadays, replicated in a large language model. You can't, because you can go to an LLM and say, give me the top 10 whatever, and it'll give you recommendations. But if you go to an LLM and say, what broadband suppliers are available in this postcode, the LLM doesn't know. It can't answer that. It has. It might be able to in the future. I don't know. But it would have to ingest that data. It would have to keep. It would have to have it up to date. And Google never managed it in 20 years to get that level of data. So there's. If you look at there's other websites that do similar things. Money Supermarket, Compare the Market, do it with insurance. And services where they've got on the back end as well, like say credit reference, those kind of things. Do that sort of aggregation comparison. That affiliate model is still thriving.
Absolutely fascinating. I'm intrigued to know, were the affiliate programs for the providers, it's just so common now to want to promote an offer and find a relevant affiliate program. Were they all set up? Did you have to have conversations with people in order to start an affiliate program for you? How did that look in the early days?
To be fair, they were all there. The affiliate window was still there. Tradeable was around. They were early days, but they'd basically gone out, very luckily for us. It was just fluke, and got most of these people on board. There was the odd one that was doing their own affiliate model, and some that weren't doing it, but they all soon got into it. And that, to be fair, was actually no problem. It was a discovery journey for us because we didn't know there were things such as affiliates back then. We didn't know there were networks. Our original thought was we'd get the providers to all come along and they'd enter all their data about all the deals for us, and we built all this system for the providers to log in and give us all the details, and then we started to approach the first one or two who then said, oh no, just go and talk to affiliate window or go and talk to trade doubler. And that's when we discovered we were going to have to do the hard work of putting all those deals in. The providers were not going to do it for us. So this is one of the things where we should have researched a little bit before we built something, but we survived.
And was throughout the journey of broadband.co.uk, was it always that model of organic and affiliate, or did you ever go back to PPC? Did you ever do ads? Did you build email lists? How did that look?
We tried lots of things. We would every so often go back and try PPC. The trouble we had with PPC was that all the actual, broadband providers themselves were very invested in PPC, and they obviously had a greater lifetime value, so they could outbid us as affiliates. There are some affiliates that do it really well, like the big ones, the Money Supermarkets, the Confused.coms are way bigger than us, in resource wise. But we could never make those numbers work. We experimented with retargeting, that didn't work. We built email lists. It would work to a certain extent, but it's broadband's something that people buy maybe once or twice in a decade. They don't churn so much, so it was hard to justify the effort of creating lots of emails because we were solely targeted on broadband. Like we didn't, like a Money Supermarket, which has got a whole range of products. They can keep cross promoting to people, so we didn't have that. We tried, but I've just got to admit and say, it then never really moved the needle. The only thing that moved the needle was organic, basically.
Okay, but I don't want to spend this whole podcast on broadband, but I've still got so much I want to ask, and it's
I've got plenty of time. There's no rush.
Okay. Just a few more things then. I want to get to the exit and the timing as well. That'll be my last point. I'm also interested in you talked about being hit. So Penguin, Panda, were you hit on both? What did recovery look like? And maybe hypothetically, would you make an well, actually, I suppose not hypothetically. I'm sure you still track traffic and stuff. Like, since it's now not your website, has it been hit since the sale? And how are you seeing them perform? Now it's not under your watchful eye.
Okay, yeah. Well, so going back to Panda and Penguin, so I'm sure most of your listeners remember, well, will have at least heard of them. I know that there's plenty of people in SEO who probably weren't even probably still at school when Panda and Penguin hit. But yeah, these were basically the first really major updates that had sort of sent major shockwaves through the SEO world. And they were like, I think, what was it? Panda was 2011, 2012 times. Penguin was 2013 time, wasn't it? So Panda was basically all about trying to eliminate low quality content. It was the first time they tried to really hit what they called low quality content, and that started to affect us. We start to see it was a slower slide with that, because I'll admit, back then some of our content wasn't great, and was thin. Essentially, we'd not paid as much attention to it as we could have done, and we started to see a slide. And we were sort of scratching our heads a bit, trying to work out what to do about that when Penguin came. And, back at that time, we would rank number one for the term broadband. We would be ranking, 1, 2, or 3 for broadband speed test. And for all the high traffic terms, we were either number 1, 2, or 3. We were up there. And then we woke up one morning and we just weren't ranking for anything. Oh. I think I found us ranking at like 939 for the term broadband. And our traffic Google at that time was about 75% of our traffic just gone. Okay. All that was keeping us afloat was Bing and direct typing traffic.
Wow. What did those numbers look like, just out of interest, in terms of daily sessions, let's say? What was it at, and what did it drop to overnight?
Yeah, I mean, around about that time, we were probably around about, I'd have to think back then, about 2,000-3,000 sessions a day, and you dropped it down to like 200 or 300. Maybe maybe a bit floating around, but it was just gone, and it was our own fault, okay, because we'd done like a lot of people did starting in 2004. If you started in 2004, we just built links everywhere of all sorts of blog comment links, footer links, text ad. Do you remember text ad links, which was like a broker network where you could just go along and say, right, I want this term, and they just you paid so much a month, and they plastered them all sorts of sites. We had like an awful backlink profile, as you would see it nowadays, but it was all fine. Google used to say it's all against the rules, and did do for sort of 8 years, but never did about it. And it just dropped. What are we going to do? And there was probably a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of stress and pressure and anxiety. Luckily, it's long enough ago that I don't remember that much of it. But what I do remember is Carl Hendy. I don't know if you come across Carl Hendy. He owns audits.com now. He was working at IEMA at the time, who are an agency in London, and I've met him at a few sort of SEO events, and we got friendly. I got an email from Carl saying, I see that your site's like dropped off a cliff. And I'm like, yeah. And he said, do you mind if I have a look? And I said, yeah, have a look. And, obviously he wanted some money. And we were happy to pay it. We were happy to pay him because he was rude. But I knew, I'd spoken to some people and, other people, and I approached other agencies, and they were just, I wasn't confident that these people knew what on earth they were doing. But Carl came along, said, this is what I think the problem is. Let's look at it. And he put a plan together, did an audit for us, helped us with the getting all the links disavowed, links removal, helped us redesign the site, sorted out the panda issues, sorted out the penguin issues. And after a few months, we started to recover sections. So the first bit that came back was our reviews section, where users could post reviews for broadband suppliers. But that was all redesigned with Carl's, wireframes, and he said this will sort your panel, and that came back, and we started getting traffic on that. And then the speed test came back, and it all started coming back. And it didn't just come back; it came back to a level that was way above where we were. So after about 2 years, we were up about 200%. And then we peaked at probably 5 times the traffic that we were beforehand. And, to this day, I will always give Carl the credit for that. And if anyone needs a top-notch SEO consultant, go and talk to Carl. And he doesn't blow his own trumpet enough. That's one thing, he doesn't like public speaking. He's actually I saw him on a podcast today, so he does the occasional podcast now, but he lives in Australia now, but he's brilliant. So he's the guy if you've ever got a problem. But he helps sort us out. And, learned so much from him. That got us back into a position. And that's when I changed our complete approach to link building, which was I'm going all organic now. I'm not ever buying a link ever again. Now, I know you guys do. You've had you on my podcast where we talked all about PR, digital PR, link building. That's great. That's the right kind of link building. But yeah, ever since that day, we were like, no, it's all content led now. We're going to produce the best content, the best tools, and that is what will drive us. Even if it takes longer, I'm just not going through that penguin style thing again. So that was our sort of road to Damascus, I suppose, moment where we changed how we did stuff. We came out of the sort of black and grey side, and we just went completely. I can't do that again. And we've had over the next few years, you have traffic fluctuations, ups and downs, updates come and go, but we never ever after that point had any serious issues. That was absolutely great. And you came back to asking about the exit. Yeah. So what was that? What was that? Just
So fair play to Carl, and what another fortunate part of the journey for the business for him to have just spotted that and then implement. And then obviously you went really, really strong content focus, which is great. And then you got approached for an exit, which you said had happened multiple times before, but for whatever reason, I don't know if this was the final alignment of the stars for you, but you decided at that point that the price was right and that you would exit. I think this was what year was this?
It was 2021. Yeah, 2021. 2021. Okay. Yeah. So, where we got to was obviously one aspect of having had the issues with Penguin back in 2013 was, as well as sorting out broadband.co.uk, it was a case of, right, we need some diversification. We've been lucky once, so let's see if we can do this again. Sites in other niches, okay, telecoms, energy, that kind of thing, to try and de-risk. So if you lose one site, hopefully we'll have some others up. And we all great content, tool based, data, based on data and amalgamating different data sets, building that kind of site, and we got some of the sites up. So then it became broadband UK was doing well. Now less than half of our income, because we had other sites that were also providing us income. So it meant that when it came to 2021 and Genie Ventures approached us, it wasn't an all or nothing decision. It wasn't we have to, if we sell it now, well, what's our income going to be? Because however much money you get, when it's hard to retire in your 40s. Even if you get tens and tens of millions, you need a huge amount of money to maintain a lifestyle and just quit at that point. So it was the case of, okay, we've got other income, we can take this money and we don't have to live off it. That was one key thing. And the second key thing was, it was a good offer, it was a fair offer. We were happy with the multiple it was based on, and also we knew the guys who were going to take it on, because they were from niche. They had broadband Genie. They could understand. They were the right kind of buyer. So You see, so I didn't want to abandon my staff to people who didn't know what they were doing. So there was an element of that to it as well. So I thought there was the right buy for us, the right buy for our staff. And also the offer was good. It was all up front. There was no earn outs. And I know plenty of people who'd sold businesses with earn outs and they never get the earn outs because people either are incompetent who buy it and they never get into a position to pay the earn out, or the earn outs are so hard to get that they're designed never to get. So it was nice and simple. It was the middle of COVID, which did that play a part of thinking, it was a time of uncertainty. Maybe this just gives us a large element of uncertainty, because we knew at some point, we'd thought for the past 20 years we're going to sell it. We want to be able to sell it at some point. When's the right point going to be? You never know when the right point's going to be. But it just I say the stars aligned. It just seemed like the right thing to do, and it was straightforward enough, even though the legal document that we went through was like War and Peace. It was like that thick, and took a lot of going through. But it all worked out, and it just completed, no problems, and it all handed over fine. Yeah, and it's all been fine since then. How they've done, I don't know, because as soon as it was gone, we lost visibility of all metrics, all sales data, all those kind of things. And I keep an eye on some of the things, some of the rankings they've got, and they've had their ups and downs. Like say you have core updates. I don't know exactly how they've done or how they haven't done. They have what they have done, because if you go to the site now, it's nothing like when I ran it, because they decided, obviously after about 3 years, they ran them separately. And then last year I noticed that they'd actually merged them together. So they've now got more of the broadband Genie platform and branding, but they've put it on the broadband.co.uk domain name. So they kind of merged the sites together. And the stuff on there that is still content I wrote years ago, but it's all been redesigned and put in, and they've got plenty of other content on there as well. So, but I mean, they're still operating fine, and I still see that the company on LinkedIn. I've not spoken to the guys that bought it off us for quite a while, but I'm assuming they're all still happy. I'm still happy. So yeah, but it's one of those things like, but you can't have too when you sell something, you can't have too many what ifs, because you just drive yourself crazy. Yeah. So you just have to say, right, that's a decision we made. We move on.
That's brilliant. So good custodians for your baby. The right price, the right time. A perfect wrap up, I think, to an awesome story, Ed. Okay, let's leave broadband behind us for now. Then you mentioned that you had a couple of other sites on the go at the time. Are they still going?
Yeah.
Are you currently working actively on anything else? And do you think that the model that you were so successful with broadband is still a viable model for people looking to start a business now, or would you advise against that?
Right. Okay. So quite a few questions there. Yeah. So we've still got the sites, and my tactic's always been with sites. I'm a builder. I like building things. I like starting things. If I have one problem, it is finishing things, probably sometimes taken to the natural conclusion. But I built, like in real life, like I'll build things like, I always built this house, renovated houses and stuff, and we live on a farm. We bought a farm a few years ago, and that's always work there. Always building work needs doing there. We've got horses, and there's always something needs building for them. I build stuff. It's the same with the web. I will just build. We'll start and launch things, and we'll see if they work. So we built lots of sites. It didn't work. My hit rate is probably about 20 to 30%. We build something, probably 20, 30% of them work and start to, generate income for us. So I'm a bit more scattergun approach. Throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks. But I always try and use the similar principle. It's got to be data. It's got to be around some kind of data. It would be called programmatic. Nowadays people call it programmatic. I like stuff that's programmatic, but to me, it's just database driven. Mm-hmm. It's taking data and then letting the website build itself from that.
Okay.
So yeah, so we still do that. We obviously built keywords people use, and all the tools around that. And we've got some other tools in the pipeline that we're working on and we're going to launch. And we're also now heavily researching into AI, and we've got loads of great ideas for how to do stuff with AI. None that I want to say, yeah, we're definitely going to do this, because we've got about 3 strong ideas that we're sort of researching how to do them, but it's all about monetizing them. But with the AI thing, we're trying not to just take an idea and bolt AI on, which is a lot of people seem to be doing, like, AI being a buzzword. We're actually trying to find things that you could only do with AI or are only scalable with AI, rather than just taking an existing tool and then bolting some AI on the side, which we did a little bit with Keywords People Use. We bolted some AI stuff on the side of it, which, in all honesty, are not the core parts of that product, and are the bits that were kind of slowly deprecated off the side because they weren't really doing what we wanted to do. It just got a bit caught up in the hype. But yes, we're doing a lot of research about fundamentally how to build AI agents at the very core level, not just using, because we do use like no code stuff like N8N. Like, I know you use N8N as well, and you can do some fantastic stuff with it, and it's great on a personal level. But we're obviously trying to look at building some tools that we can scale up that other people can use. So, because there are going to be lots of people out there who are less techie, who aren't going to be the ones that will build their no code version. There is things like, there's plenty of small businesses out there, like plumbers, like florists, like hairdressers, like pubs, that where you could incorporate AI into their workflows in a way that would help them and help improve their productivity and help improve their businesses. But they don't want to be setting up N8N workflows. Yeah. They want to buy an off-the-shelf service that will do the thing for them. So we're trying to find opportunities like that, and I think there's a lot of opportunity there. When it comes back to the affiliate world, and whether affiliate still works, yes, affiliate will still strongly work, but you've got to have a good product in front of it. Affiliate, like the sort of display advertising model of, I'll write a blog about XYZ, put display ads on, that's pretty much dead now. And I can't say, and AI overviews is killing that. But on the affiliate side, there is still monetization opportunities. If you build something that cannot be replicated in an AI overview, that is based on data that is not easily available, that you've got to pull together or find sources and aggregate data sets together. It's with these things, if you can combine multiple things together, that's the opportunity to build something new. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel completely. You just have to bring some data, some sources together that aren't in one place already, and then go from there. So it's still an option, but there's, like with all things, it's always challenging to build anything new and to get traction. That's probably the harder bit.
So with keywords people use, then obviously that's the idea of that is for content, and so you still think that content can drive traffic and affiliate sales if it's being monetized with affiliate, but you think it needs to be in some form of aggregation of data that's been put together in a useful way that is behind that content. Is that what you're saying?
It depends what your ultimate outcome is. Okay, so if you want to be an affiliate, yes, you've got to aggregate people so that you aggregate data so you can send people to the next destination.
Right.
That's your job as an affiliate. Okay, so you've got to educate, aggregate, and then forward them onto the right place. But if you are but not everyone wants to be an affiliate. You might be the merchant and you want to get people directly. Okay, so you're looking for customers. Okay, so this SEO is still going to work in the AI world, because fundamentally, if people want to purchase something, they can't purchase it off the AI. The AI isn't going to fulfill them a product. That's why there's always going to be e-commerce. There's always going to be, service providers of various things. Okay, where there is a product to be bought. Okay, so in that case, you're going to care less about the volume of traffic. You're going to care more about the quality of traffic, okay? Because fundamentally, the people that matter to you most are your customers. There's no point having 100,000 people come to your e-commerce site and only 3 of them buy, okay? You'd much rather have 500 people come and they all buy. You've got a better site and a better strategy for that, okay? So that's going to be the important thing, quality. So you've still got to have that content. You've still got to demonstrate to the LLMs, to the search engines. You've got to be the thing that's popping as the place that they will refer when people are getting to the purchasing decision point. And to do that, you still have to have all the content. You might find that content is taken by the LLM or the AI overview and served up, but it's referencing you, and you will eventually be the place where people come to. So it's going to be more important about attracting the quality of people less than the numbers of people. So that's something that's not going to change. And that's why it's important to build that topical authority. It's a term topical authority some people like the term, some people hate it. There's arguments about what it is or what it isn't. But fundamentally, if you build enough of a corpus of content around a topic and specialize around that topic, you will start to get noticed by the search engines eventually, and you will get noticed by the people, which will drive the links, which will drive all the other things, which will drive you up the rankings. You like say, if you haven't got content, no matter how much of anything else you throw at it, you won't rank. You still need something for people to land on, and you have to work out what that is. And we've going back to broadband.co.uk, that was all about answering people's questions about broadband 20 years ago. And the key thing is to discover what the questions people are asking, and you need help to do that. Back in the day, it was all off our own head, or off the questions people are asking us, and as more and more sources of that data started to appear, that's when we started to scrape it and use it and have that sort of drive what content we built. But it's interesting you say about it's all about content that keywords people use. I did a podcast interview the other day with one of our customers who's had a fantastic journey of growth from a startup that they started last year. And I got him on to talk about the journey and how it used keywords people use. And I thought it would all be all about the content, but actually, he said it's driven their strategy as much as it's driven their content, because they discovered the big questions people were asking. They weren't the ones they thought they were. They discovered that there's whole areas around, they do solar financing. They found whole areas around the solar financing that they didn't realize people needed help with. And they've developed products around that.
Wow. Yeah.
That are now helping them grow the business. So he was saying we should sell this to startups as a market research thing. And this guy, he'd had funding before. He was bootstrapping now, but previous life, he'd got I think it was several £1 million worth of funding to create fintech products, and they'd spent hundreds of thousands on market research that proved to be wrong. They burnt all the money and the company went bust. And he said, what you got of keywords people use for, just to, like $30 a month, have given him better market research than he'd had of paying hundreds of thousands to market research company. So I'm not saying we could do that for everybody, but it was a really interesting take to see how he was using that question data, not just to drive his content, but also to drive his strategy.
And the clues in the name as well, keywords people use. It's keywords people are using, which is if they're searching, if they're asking, then they are genuine questions from your either existing or potential customers. So exactly, really interesting. Okay, Ed, as we approach the end of the podcast, fascinating to talk to you. Really, some really insightful stuff. We're super excited about AI as well. For us, I think a really interesting part of the future of AI is going to be less about the hype around the tools themselves. Like N8N is great, but Manus, I just got early access to Manus recently, which is one of these deep search tools, and they're coming out left, right, and center. And I think the technology is changing so quickly. For us, what we're interested in is not necessarily how to build these things, but how to come up with ideas of what you should build. And you touched on that a little bit as well with like plumbers or other businesses. Like everybody knows that thinks they should be using AI, but less about like, okay, you can do this in crazy, multi-agent workflow in N8N that does this, and that. But actually, what can you actually do with AI that's going to benefit your business, either make you more money, save you more time? So I think it's a really interesting space, and I'll be really interested to see those three big ideas that you touched on, and we'll definitely have you back on as well. Just as we wrap up then, future of AI, Google, any tidbits?
I would say I think Google's going to be around a lot longer than some people are predicting.
Okay.
I would take it back to, if you remember, those of us old enough to remember the Yellow Pages, where back in the day before Google, if you wanted a service provider, you went to the Yellow Pages, which had all your local businesses in. And the optimization for that was to call yourselves Aardvark plumbers, because you had AA and it was alphabetical order. That only recently stopped being produced as a print version about 4 or 5 years ago. And it still exists online, but it took a long time for people to stop using Yellow Pages. Even when Google was there was something far superior. I think you're going to find that there's a whole load of the population are going to be using Google for a long time, because they don't want to switch. They don't understand how to switch. They don't want to pay for a different service. Now, Google may look different, but I think Google's dominance is so ingrained, like the Yellow Pages was. I think it's going to take longer than people think for it to move on. But that's not to say that you shouldn't get into the AI stuff. I use ChatGPT all the time, Claude all the time. If you're a power user, it's incredibly valuable. You'll see that. But many consumers you'll still see on Google for a long time. So I think that the death of Google is at this point premature.
I agree. And I think especially for local businesses, like you're a data man. You've talked about data a number of times in this podcast. The data that they have behind their maps is, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to replicate that. And I think they're just sitting on so much data. But yeah, we'll see. I still use Google if I want to find certain things. I think search habits have changed as opposed to there'll be a mass exodus from any given platform. I just think there'll be a multiple approach to different platforms, and people will search for what suits that particular search need. But it is moving very, very quickly. It's like you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, this new thing's come out that just blows what came out yesterday out of the water, and it's almost impossible to keep up with. But it is exciting.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, we live in interesting times, that's for sure.
Yeah. Ed, it's been amazing to have you on. If people want to connect with you, obviously you've got keywordspeopleuse.com if they want to look at that. But where can they find you, your podcast, your YouTube?
Yeah, podcast, just search for SEO. It's not that hard. Look for the bald guy. And then, so that's the podcast. Find me on LinkedIn, Ed Dawson. Ed is with 2 Ds, so it's EDD. Dawson. But just, find me on LinkedIn. Days and connect with me on there if you want to connect to us.
Awesome. Ed, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for listening. It means a lot to me. This is where I get to remind you where you can connect with me and my SEO tools and services. You can find links to all the links I mentioned here in the show notes. Just remember, with all these places where I use my name, the Ed is spelled with 2 Ds. You can find me on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Just search for Ed Dawson on both. You can record a voice question to get answered on the podcast. The link is in the show notes. You can try our SEO intelligence platform, Keywords People Use, at keywordspleuse.com, where we can help you discover the questions and keywords people are asking online, post those questions and keywords into related groups so you know what content you need to build topical authority, and finally, connect your Google Search Console account for your sites so we can crawl and understand your actual content. Find what keywords you rank for and then help you optimize and continually refine your content with targeted, personalized advice to keep your traffic growing. If you're interested in learning more about me personally or looking for dedicated consulting advice, then visit www.eddawson.com. Bye for now, and see you in the next episode of SEO Is Not That Hard.